just to capture this before we even get into it, we just really need to start hitting record before, because we were already like having a sweet combo.
Yeah.
Now I'm in podcast mode, so much more serious. But welcome to a podcast. Your host, Stephen Maxted. And today we have the lovely Larry Anderson with Chess Club Agency out of Saskatoon for geographical references today. And Larry, thanks for making time. I know we've connected in some tech events, and I see your company all the time on LinkedIn and otherwise, and your very specific branding, which I'm excited to dive into a little bit today. But that's enough out of me. How are you doing? And let's share with the listener here maybe a little bit about you and your story, and then we'll get into continuing chatting.
Sweet. So you're our one follower on LinkedIn and Instagram. So nice to meet you.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Could you imagine if I only did have one follower? Yeah. So my name is Larry Anderson. My real name is Larissa, but I got blessed with the nickname Larry like a few years ago. And then everyone's just called me Larry, and it kind of stuck. And now it's on a business card and how I sign things now for the business. So I guess it's going to be on for a while there.
Can we start with that? Wait, how did it start?
How did Larry start?
Yeah, what was the situation?
Well, I started at MGM Communications, and there was already a Larissa working there. Okay. And they're like, well, there can't be two Larissas. And I'm like, well, like, some people call me Larry as a nickname because I kind of swear like a trucker, and they think it's funny. And they're like, okay, Larry. And then I don't know. It was from then on, everybody's like Larry. So it just stuck. And I was okay with it, except some people, when you're only talking to them like via email and you're like, yeah, I'll meet you out for coffee or whatever, I'm sitting there and like waving aggressively like, hey, and the other people are like, who is this lady? I'm like, I'm Larry. And they're like, what? We were expecting a man. I was like, well, I can be whatever you want me to be. Yeah, so it's kind of funny in that respect.
Totally. You know what? For some reason in my head, I assumed that this was like a lifelong nickname. Because that you had introduced yourself as Larry, and it was just like the way you said it with such confidence. I'm just like, oh, I guess this has probably been like a childhood thing. I don't know why that was my assumption. Just like lifelong nickname that had been around forever. So
no, I just got it. It would probably been like 7 years ago. And yeah,
that's a good shift. That's a good start.
I mean, I'm not complaining. It's easier to write than Larissa, so
there you go.
It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
this is fantastic. So let's back to we'll be going back and forth on business and unrelated topics, I think, on this episode. There's the business itself that you're in with such the cool branding, as I mentioned, and I'm pleased if I was the one follower out there liking their stuff, but I'm often not the first one to have even liked or engaged with the content that your team puts out on behalf of the business. But I know part of it is doing other marketing and branding work. But anyways, share what that's all about. And what areas you guys touch in.
Yeah, for sure. So we actually bought an existing agency. So the agency that I used to work at was called MGM Communications. And my two business partners that I have now, Sherry Behill and Carl Sheldon, we had purchased the agency about 3 years ago. And at that point, we decided that we were going to rebrand it because we kind of wanted to restructure how the agency was run, how we get clients, and kind of our whole mindset within. So we did the rebrand, and then for the first year, we really focused on building a good foundation. So we actually looked at the business strategy for the agency, because I think that kind of comes last sometimes. It would, especially in agency life, you're going after RFP after RFP, and you're kind of just going from proposal to proposal. So we wanted to be a little bit more strategic and set some goals for ourselves that we would make sure that it was sustainable. But in that kind of strategic planning, there was an underlying thing where if we weren't sustainable or had a certain amount of AGI that was coming in, we wouldn't be able to retain the top talent that we wanted. And that's one of the things that we really focused on for the agency, is that we wanted to hire local talent. We didn't want to outsource. It's not that we're opposed to outsourcing, but we wanted to bring the talent here because everyone was leaving for bigger jobs that offered more. And we were seeing that culture move away from Saskatoon. So that was one of the big initiatives for us. And then the second year, we really focused on the culture of the agency. So who we were looking for when we were recruiting individuals, and what we stand for, like what was our why. And we did a lot of like profiling. So we did a DISC program to figure everybody's personalities and how to talk to each other. And I mean, there's like really interesting things that I've found out because I'm a D, which is a direct person. And I would just get up and walk over to someone's desk and be like, hey, we should talk about this now. And it was like a big no-no. And they actually, when we were all talking about it, they had like this running joke that they could hear my chair lift up in the office because we have an open space office. And they're like, oh my God, she's coming. What person is she coming to? But it's just like, I was like, I didn't know that. And I wouldn't have never known that because it's not their personality to say something to me about like, can you just message me like 5 minutes before you come and talk to me? So
Right. Give you a little bit of heads up before. Yeah. A little warm up.
Yeah. And for me, I'm just like, oh yeah, you can talk to me anytime. I just got to take my headphones out kind of thing. So we discovered a lot of different things like that. And it kind of brought us together and we told funny stories just like that. So
Cool.
and then in the third year, we really focused on growth. So, and in those like 3 years, we were still going after RFPs, but it was focus of the owners aside from getting business as well. So we had set some pretty heavy goals of getting, like was like a 5-year goals, and we were able to achieve them in our third year. So we had to go back to strategic planning this year and set some new goals. So obviously it's working. We'll see how it pans out. But yeah, that's like the agency.
Yeah,
I guess
that's awesome.
It doesn't really tell you what we do, but that's how we got there. I could tell you what we do as well.
Yeah, spill the news. Yeah, share the hard news here.
I feel like I'm yapping the whole time, but that's like the point of a podcast, right?
You're nailing it.
Good. Okay. So at Chess Club, not only do we make fun of each other, like getting up from desk chairs and stomping over, but we do branding, and we're a full service agency. So our kind of core business is crown and ministry clients. So that's your agency of record. So basically you compete for these contracts, and it's pretty lengthy process. And then you either get awarded their contracts for 4 to 6 years, and you handle absolutely everything for them. So like any campaign that they do, their branding, we follow that. We do video work. We do the research with our partners for it, media placements, kind of everything. So it's a one-stop shop. So if they say they want to get a mascot, it's on us to kind of facilitate that for them. Cool. And then our other kind of huge piece is branding. And we start usually with brand audits, which is just trying to figure out where medium to large businesses brands are currently standing, and then kind of go from there. So it's not just slapping a logo or adding new colors. There's a lot more deeper parts to it by looking into the why of the company and seeing where the values connect for their audiences and if there's any gaps or opportunities. So that's our main gig here.
Awesome. I think that was a wonderful recap. I mean, don't be afraid to grab the mic like that. That was perfect. If I was outside listening in, I would now know everything about it. Yeah. Sorry, just for listener here, what does RFP stand for?
Request for proposal. So they're just basically asking us to spend a lot of time to make a big written proposal for them. Hopefully they read. Sometimes when I'm reading the proposals, I'm like, man, this is boring. And like 98 pages, but there's so many requirements. So maybe in the future, I'm going to see how I can condense that, but still get all the check marks. That'll be my goal this year. Get it down to
Okay.
like 52
Pages.
pages.
Oh my God. It's like a book. I had a I'm gonna insert a personal story in this one here, but it's
Yep.
work related, I guess, from a past job. But I worked for this company, and we were all of a sudden requested to send in these like weekly reports. It was kind of an intense sales company, and blah blah blah. And new manager. I don't know. This is also probably why I work for myself now, but there's a strong reason. But I had a gut feeling that they weren't reading the reports. They were just kind of like tasking us with something extra, and I kind of thought it was bullshit.
Mhm.
And so I'm whatever. They were like a page. They were nothing as long as that. But I would put fun animal facts at the bottom with like a subtitle, and I'd put a fun animal fact.
Yeah.
And I told the fellow employees about this. I no one ever made jokes about it. No one whatever, like on the other end of who was receiving these. And I'm like, I was so sure that they weren't reading them, and this is why I started putting them in there. And they
Yeah.
were just like, I don't know, did you know that the giraffe's, heart is 4 feet long or something like that? I was just like Google random. This is before
Yeah.
ChatGPT, which wasn't that long ago. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I did this for several months. Then it was once a week, and I was like almost pressed at one point. I'm like, how do I find a new animal fact? Like, what am I going to put in here? Like, bears cover their nose to hunt or whatever, and just a lot of it, like
Yeah.
like informative stuff. But yeah, I was pretty convinced no one was reading them. So I mean, hopefully
And
that
no one commented about it?
no one brought it up. In fact, the other employees were just like, okay, like whatever, who cares? Like no one's brought it up in meetings, and I'm like, yeah, did you even do it?
Yeah.
And I feel like somewhere I have them printed off because I was just like, this is funny for me and maybe not funny their end, but I don't think anyone even read them. It was my test,
That's
to be able to
hilarious.
sprinkle something in there, find out if they read the whole thing.
I'm gonna have to
Um,
do that.
maybe, yeah, test out the team. Be like, put in, Larry's comments. I don't know. Instead
Yeah.
of Cole's notes, it's Larry's notes.
Or yeah, basically.
Yeah. Anyways, but
Right.
that's it sounds like quite an intense process to go through that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense if you're going to be partnered up with, these organizations for that amount of time.
Yeah.
4 to 6 years that's a good lengthy relationship in the
Mhm.
business setting. So
Yeah.
that's very cool.
Yeah, and then like and there's like an evaluation every year, so you're not guaranteed those 4 to 6 years. If you're kind of basically shit in the bed, then you lose
Right.
them. And then they go up for RFP again, and then another agency bids on it. But
Gotcha.
especially in Saskatchewan, it's just a nice way to provide that safety net and sustainability for the agency, because when you're working
Sure.
with private sector, unless you have a contract, and even those are pretty loose as well,
Mhm.
it's not as like sure steadfast, because it's
Yeah.
crowns and ministries, so they have a huge process that they go through. So yeah.
Neat. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So like in
What's
the first year we had like 2 crowns and ministries, and now we have 7 crowns and ministries. So
very cool.
you can imagine how many proposals, and we lost a whole bunch too. Like I was looking back at our proposal list, and I was like, man, we're doing good. But then I look at like all the
The
proposals that we've
losses.
submitted. I'm like, I'm not going to look at that anymore, because I'm going to remain positive on this end. But like, whatever, if you don't try, then you never know, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's that Wayne Gretzky quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes. Everyone
Wayne
uses
Gretzky,
that. I'm
Michael
like,
Scott. Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna have to
um,
think of a new one.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll task you each for ourselves. That'll be this first quarter's project.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, wait, sub note here. I don't know what I was gonna ask. Is like lately I've been talking about like business is kind of like educated gambling in terms of
Mhm.
even what you described there. If you're putting out this many proposals, it's almost like playing roulette.
Yeah.
You know that some are gonna hit, some aren't, different reasons, timing, how you worded something, who's reading it on the other end,
It's true.
other connections, whatever's going on there. It's like a calculated risk every day, as an entrepreneur there. So
It is.
um
That's why
yeah,
it's not made for everybody.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can't. Well, yeah, as we were talking before, well, yeah, you got to be kind of a little crazy
Yeah.
to be in
But
it.
it's mental illness that really thrives for entrepreneurs, I think. They're like, "How
That's
do
how
you
you know.
do it?" I'm like, "I'm mentally unwell."
Do you have a shirt or a hat that has it on there? I feel like
Yeah.
that's something that I've seen online before. Um, yeah. What's one of the biggest stresses you've had on the journey of entrepreneurship?
Mm, I think like trusting my gut because
Mhm.
pretty like I'm pretty sure of myself when I know or feel like have a good feeling about it. But then you
Right.
start listening to outside sources and then it starts to like kind of waver your judgment.
Yeah.
So that kind of, and then like even running the business and caring about individuals that you have for employees, you're
Right.
really thinking like, man, is my gut telling me the truth, or did I have a bad burrito and this is all wrong? Like this is like I need
Yeah.
to know these things. So it was like you really have to trust yourself, and that was a lot for me
Mhm.
because of the weight, because I know the ripple effect of certain like business decisions. But
Right.
when you have good partners like Sherry and Carl, I think it makes it a lot easier because we're so different in personality. Sherry is a CPA. She's very financial and
Right.
like risk adverse, and she likes to know every detail. And I'm like we'll figure it out later. Let's just do that. And then Carl's more like, yeah, but will it fulfill my soul creatively? And like, I don't know, but it'll make us money. So do you like that? I don't know. But
Totally.
having all those factors really makes you like step back and realize, okay, is this
Yeah.
something right for chess club too? So I love it. And usually Carl and Sherry, they've learned to trust my gut too. And they know that I rarely have bad burritos and I'm usually just like, my gut's good.
I like that. No, I
Yeah.
think you nailed it there. Do you remember which ones they were on the disc test?
On the disc test? Yeah.
Yeah. What were?
So Carl was an S and then Sherry was a C. So I think S was like supportive and like soft in nature, doesn't like confrontation.
Right.
And Sherry, I can't remember what the C stand for now.
Okay. Let me look it up. We don't have a
But
research team. I'll Google it quick.
yeah, and I think like it was basically like needs to know all the facts, very analytical, kind of needs perfection in a lot of things. And then yeah, it was the D that was just like direct and kind of
Uh,
I guess didn't really need a lot of information before I steered it.
yeah. So D dominance.
Yeah,
S is steady. I'm sure that there's multiple versions of
yeah,
like even this test, but
yeah.
and then conscientious is C,
Yeah,
and then I is influence for. But I mean, it looks
yeah,
like there's a few on
influencer.
here. That's just first. Uh,
Yeah, you can be like multiple ones too, but you can
yeah,
tell
you
in
can.
each department too, there's
That's
like
what's funny.
they are all categories. Like the
Yeah,
production team, whose job is making sure that everything's perfect before it goes out, and they still have some creative, but they need to know all the facts. They're all C's, and then the creative team is
interesting.
all S's. They're just like speak to us softly, make sure the lighting is right, no loud noises, and make sure there's beer. Okay, and then over in accounts, it's all like influencers just like we love everybody. So you can kind of see like how it all works out, and it's
That's really
amazing to
cool.
have so many different personalities in one agency, especially like an open
Right.
open concept. So it's good though. It's a lovely
That's
bunch of
awesome.
coconuts.
That's fantastic. No, that's super cool the way you describe it. I know that I've gone through that process with companies before, and even
Yeah.
some of the companies that we now like do some consulting with, they literally have it like written down on whiteboards, and you walk in their office of like different people like in the like meeting room. It's really neat.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
there's another. I forget what the test is called because I actually had to take it to work with them.
Myers-Briggs? Is that
No,
it?
but I like that one too. This one has like numbers, and it's
Numbers
like
and mm,
yeah, so there's like it's a scale of 1 to 10 in each of the categories. So you have like a rating within. It's probably very similar to DISC, if not kind of the same thing. But then you
probably
have a
the
rating out of 10 with how much, if it were to be how much D or I or S or K or C you were,
same. Mhm.
within that, if that was the spectrum that it was on, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So that, yeah, then they have like, and then yeah, the gentleman who runs that company we work with, he's always like, when something kind of goofs up in the day, he's like, yeah, that person's a 5'4", 2'1". Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It's quite literally how he looks like. We're messaging today, and he didn't use that in today's conversation, but when I've been there, he's just like, oh yeah, something went a little astray. I can tell because so and so is this rating, and they totally didn't read the fine print or whatever it was, and
Yeah.
that's just them. And that's kind of how he managed. Like
Yeah.
in his case, manages that business. It's really interesting because
Mhm.
we to our core, we are really true to certain attributes and traits, and the more you know, the better it is. Like you're joking about yourself being the dominant or the kind of like the driver one.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I did that training, like a early in career thing, and a lot of people I think that fall into that category are sometimes shocked by it or they kind of take it wrong. And I remember you had to get like family and friends to fill out your version of it. I don't know
Yeah.
if you guys had to do this too, but where
No,
they
we
like kind
did.
of like guess like what you're like, they'd fill out a survey and then you'd get the results. And like mine was just like 10 out of whatever it was. It was like, I'm like, yep, that makes sense. But people who
Checked
often
out.
fell into that category, they were like in denial. They're like, I'm not a driver. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
be assertive or whatever. For some people are just totally fine with it. But I found that to be a
Yeah.
funny thing when taken
I
to
just
before.
I was
But
just upset. I was like the only D in the office. There was no one else. And then I was like, and everybody, and they play like these explainer videos, and the D is the asshole. And
right.
I'm
I
like,
think that's why people were upset.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, look, I'm not that bad. This freaking Karen girl in this video just needs to eat something. I swear to God. Okay. I'm not like, but I'm like, what? And then there's some aspects where I'm like, yeah, just cut to the chase. I don't need to know anything about anything. Just tell me the facts and we can move on. But
Totally. Yeah. It's
yeah,
funny how even, sharing that information gets your attention differently than other personalities. I think that's one of like the best things
yeah,
about that test because some things are not taken personally. Sometimes when people don't like reply right or they just go, okay, they're good. But they
yeah,
said that to me, it's like, oh,
yeah, exactly.
oh God, I've royally messed up.
Yeah,
They didn't send me, a longer explanation or whatever it is, but they're actually fine on their end. Everything's good.
yeah.
Um,
I call that the dad answer when they say
yeah.
K.
Oh,
Yep.
what a
And I'm like,
savage, what a
okay.
killer
Or
to the
like
ego.
K with a period. And I'm
Mm.
like, hey, there's no need to yell. I'm like, don't K period me. But also
Gosh.
I'm one that does that.
Sometimes I can do that if it's a quick one. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay, boop,
Yeah. I'm like,
and then
okay.
it's off. And then I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yep.
And then I don't think about the emotional trickle
Yeah.
to tsunami I've just caused on the
Yeah.
other end.
And then like weeks later you find out like I cried that evening. I'm like,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah. I think that's something that is like kind of over thought about when maybe you're not the one driving the bus, like prior being an employee and stuff. Like I would freak out.
Mhm.
Forgot like that reply from like the boss. But now I'm like, no, everything's chill. Like
Yeah.
I almost have to send like the reassuring, like everything's good.
Yeah.
Just quick replying. I'm moving, shaking, doing something. The
Yeah.
squirrel's running up here, so I only had the capacity to reply with KK. Sounds good.
You know how I
Yeah.
got around that because it was an issue because I would just answer shortly and I just like move on. And usually my spelling was off. I missed a couple words because I was
Oh,
like
okay.
multitasking and everything.
Mhm.
And I was like, so I just started
Yep.
sending them audio notes.
Oh,
And I don't know if they like it or
no,
not
that's
yet,
good.
but I'm like, but then I can explain it and they
Yeah.
can hear my tone of voice and everything. And
Mhm.
it's been working out. Although I feel sometimes ridiculous when I can hear my audio note being played in the office and I'm like,
They're like
but
recording it.
yeah,
Um, that's actually a really good point. But I think
yeah,
that's one of the biggest things about, when people talk about like communication, it's often not the quantity, but
mhm,
that quality. And it doesn't have to be like an essay, but like emails were literally invented to figure out, is what I heard anyways, for like military times. So it's supposed to be like short, direct, blah, blah, blah. But we somehow turn them into like essays and signatures and whatever. But it's like
yeah,
way better if you could pick up the phone because then you can at least hear tone
yeah,
on that end of things versus the KK or whatever it is. And
yeah,
yeah, it's like way
yeah.
less good. That's good.
So we'll
Um,
see.
yeah. Do you have any favorite words right now that you like to use in everyday jargon, perhaps in the text?
Oh my gosh, don't even if anybody in this office watches this, they're going to be so embarrassed. I'm trying to make sploosh a word because people rarely use it.
Okay.
And I know it has its sexual innuendos, but I'm not using it for that. I'm saying like, hey, I'm
Okay.
going to sploosh on over. and like, hey, let's sploosh over to that place, or yeah, just add a little sploosh to it. I'm trying to make it a word. So far it hasn't really caught on, and people just get embarrassed.
Okay.
And then, but I've had success where I've just started using Poseidon, where I'm just like, Poseidon rides with us, like the Greek god. Because I was like, I don't know. So now when something happens that's really positive in the agency, usually people in Slack will be like, Poseidon rides with us. And it's like this lame thing that we have. I love it.
I'm glad I asked. I don't know why that popped
I'm
into my
so,
head at all. And I'm so glad that you had a word.
but like, what a word, like sploosh. They're like, please pick a different one. I'm like, no one uses it.
Is
No
it,
one.
it's in like the dictionary? Like, what does it show up as in the dictionary?
I actually don't know. I don't want to know. I just want to
Okay.
have it in my mind as like, hey, like,
Right.
sploosh on over to this spot. Add a little sploosh to this document. A little pizzazz.
So not just like a little zhuzh, you're like a
Yeah,
sploosh. We need
a
like
sploosh.
I do know, and I understand the confusion that some people might be experiencing when they hear this or when you say it.
Yes.
Did not know we were going to go down this path today at all, but I have a shareable on this one. My cousin, shout out to Jeff. He was using the term fuck around and find out very
Oh, yeah.
casually.
Yes.
Like kind of how you actually just described sploosh. He was using
Yeah.
it in like meetings. He's like, well, let's, F around and find out.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
just see what happens here. And
Yeah.
then people were like, that it's, and me and my other cousin James were actually talking about this. We're like, it's not exactly how you use it though, right? Like it's kind of different. And
Yeah.
I feel like you've experienced the other side of those conversations with
Yeah.
sploosh. And
This is the best part.
yeah, and some people were like, what do you mean? It sounds like almost like too aggressive. But he'd like literally be like, oh, let's go meet and fuck around
Yeah.
and find out if this is gonna work. Which I get totally where his head was at. It was like
Yeah.
brainstorming. It's like, hey, let's go, sploosh, or let's go
Shoot the
FAFO.
shit. It's the
Yeah,
same
let's
thing.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just gotta, I guess you can find your niche within there. I think between different, countries, groups of people, the neighborhoods, they might be confused by what you're doing with it. But yeah, one that I heard, and it just kind of like came to light for me personally was, but the word tomfoolery.
Tomfoolery.
Yeah,
Yep.
tomfoolery. Yeah, I think
I
it's
like.
just,
That's a good one.
yeah.
I also
Chesterfield
like
or that.
jubilance. It's with great jubilance that I announce this. Like no one uses that word.
That sounds like it should be for like a big announcement.
Yeah,
Like
but I
something
use
like
it for
royalty
like,
would use.
yeah.
But
It's
okay.
like, hey, it's with great jubilance that I let you guys know there's a fresh pot of coffee in the kitchen.
What is your work? How do you guys use to communicate within the team? Is it just a text group?
It is Slack. We use Slack like all the time. Yeah, we have like a general chat, and then we have like subgroups and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think most people are very confused, or when I say stuff like that in Slack, I can hear them laughing and then just being like, oh my God. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I've reached the like status of like a weird uncle or dad. So I'm very happy about it though. And I just use different words that no one uses anymore. Like if I want something a little bit more creative, I'm like, yeah, can you just like stank it up? And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, yeah, just put some stank on it. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, no, literally, we don't know what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, you do. Just stank it up. Now people are like, do you want me to put some more stank on it? I'm like, yes, I do. So you just got to keep on going. It's consistency.
I think that is the huge takeaway here too, even within, the team. They're just kind of being around me long enough to understand now when I say certain things in a certain way, it may not even make sense or be spelled right. But they're just like, yeah, we got it.
Yeah, be like,
it's taken
Roger.
care of. Yeah. Well, Exhibit A, when I'm like checking like on, I'm like, is the link sent? And it was already good. And all right, team's on top of it. Good for them. They figured it out.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. The only other one would be Chesterfield, though, on top of tomfoolery. I don't know if I got that sound clip. Yeah, just like a long, weird world. But, most people just say couch. But
Yeah,
Gesture field is just like, I don't even really know what it means. Like, I know it's the coach or whatever, but like, don't know existence of it. It's just really long, and
it's
I don't know
true.
how many syllables that is. There's only three, but
Chesterfield. I don't
yeah,
know actually.
it seems like
Oh,
almost like a half at the end, you know?
I got one for you.
Okay.
Do you say remote or channel changer?
Uh, remote.
Hey, what the fuck? No one says channel changer. This is what like all my family says that, and they're like, "Why are you saying that?" I'm like, it's literally a motherfucking channel changer. Okay, so pass me the channel changer.
Right. Okay. So remote is short for remote controller, I believe, right?
Right?
Like either way. So then we've
Yeah.
just shortened that. But
I
you,
every time I ask this question, no one calls it a channel changer. So I'm gonna have to go to my parents and be like, "What have you done to me?"
do they call it that?
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Hmm. You know, because you can't really even, like shorten that when it's like,
No.
pass me the CC.
Yeah, you could,
Next
but
thing you
then
know,
it
someone's
takes
grabbing like
away.
Canadian Club, and then they're like, "Oh." Just like, what's going on here?
Whoa,
Yeah.
didn't mean that,
Wanted-
but okay.
yeah.
Not gonna dispute it.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is amazing. There's hmm, that's really fun. What about okay, so you're based out of Saskatoon. I know this has kind of become a bit of like a tech hub in some ways, and we've now worked at different events, and I've had other folks, I guess, from that community on the show and stuff.
Mhm.
Love the energy out there. It's always been a ton of fun getting out there. What kind of thing, I guess, like where can people run into you and your team outside of Saskatoon, or is it mostly shows there if they're somewhere and they see someone bopping around using tomfoolery to speak about channel changers? Um, is it mostly local stuff, or do you guys travel a bit with for trade shows at all?
No, our stuff is pretty local. Sometimes we
Yeah,
go to Regina, but it's usually pretty local, and we go to a lot of things that our clients are involved in. Or we try and get our clients to go to these tech events as well because
right.
a lot of our clients would have use for some of this new technology that's coming up. But, when it's government and crowns, it takes a little bit longer. But when you
Right.
get those special clients that like hearing about new innovative things, so maybe they won't adopt it right away, but they can have these conversations with those individuals. So we've
Right.
had clients come to like the collabs events and Uniting the Prairies just to like get in there and listen to what's happening in this province and outside of this province too. So I think
Right.
that's where we're kind of most out and about really, but I haven't really been out lately. I've just been going home and hibernating. So you'd probably see like my business partner Carl out a lot, and actually my creative team too, because for some reason like the roles have switched. Like accounts likes green tea and Pilates now, and then creative likes to go out and talk to people, which is like, I don't know, unheard of, but I love it. But yeah, so we're
Awesome.
kind of like at those events, and we do a lot of startup TNT because Sherry, my business partner, she is an angel investor with them. So we're still connected with them quite a bit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very awesome. I mean, we've recently out of Manitoba, we don't have the TNT thing anymore. But I know the first time I saw it was out there, and it's a pretty neat thing that they have going on. Just for if someone doesn't know about that, what does it actually stand for?
Startup TNT. It's like
Mhm. Thursday
Thursday
night,
night tradition
right?
because every Thursday
Thursday
they
night.
they meet up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
And I was like, that
Actually,
is commitment. Phew,
yeah, it is. Yeah,
I
we
would
try
never
like
do that.
yeah. I don't know. We kind of are come and go on the whole show, being there every Thursday thing here. We still kind of have like a tech gathering, but it's not quite the same thing. But it's neat to
Mhm.
have like the summit for pitches and
Yeah.
stuff, and yeah, that's very cool. I just
Yeah.
found out more about the collabs thing recently as well.
Yeah.
Very neat.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of cool stuff going on. And just like talking with these innovators is really, it just gets us like jacked up too. So I think that's why we like being around in that community, is that it's not so much red tape, it's more of like possibilities and like what can we do
right,
with this. Whereas like when we're dealing with a lot of our communications or crown and ministries, it's like, yes, we see the gaps and opportunities, but there's a lot of red tape that we have to go through. I'm not saying that it's like draining or anything, because we know like we'll eventually get there, but it's almost like brings life into you again when you go to these tech events, because they're like, yeah,
Right.
we invented this. I'm like, what? How? And I always ask them, like, how did you get this idea? And most of them are pretty interesting how they get there. I can't think of the most interesting one, but I'd have to really think about it. But usually they're pretty good.
No, that's I was going to ask if there was one top of mind, and I'm trying to think of like how someone got started. I know I've heard some stories based on some folks we've had on here about oh my gosh, I'm not gonna get his name wrong. Regan. He used to do like S Media stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Regan. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we got that right. Shout out if I got that wrong. Can't even edit. Probably fix that. But just in terms of like his tenacity to keep going was an interesting thing from his story, where it was like, I don't know, the last $100 or whatever, and like decides to drive out to his dealership, ends up being like one of their major, MVPs and blah blah blah. And not local to you guys, but a guy that was on Shark Tank. He was on the podcast. That we messaged. We're now like best buddies. But he invented this thing. It's just out of arm's reach. It's too bad. This thing called like the Tentacle, and he was on like pitching, and they're like, his investor asked him like, like, how much have you put into this? And he's like, well, everything we have, I have $39 in my bank account. I literally just saw him post with that. I'm just like, whoa! I was that is wild. Yeah. So like, I mean, I prefer to not be that intense in terms of like near the end on like my own personal finances, but it's crazy to hear other people's stories about how, just to keep going. And I've heard that time and time again from other people in like startup or however it may be, running businesses. Just a matter of like time, tenacity, and tactfulness, I guess, within that journey to keep going. Yeah.
And like we're like going down this because like with branding and marketing, especially with us, we base a lot of our kind of starting conversations through discovery with the client, but then also doing market research with our partner in Citrix. And there's a lot of data there, and they provide logical solutions, which is always great because everyone can grab onto the logical part of things. And what we like to focus on, especially at Chess Club, and the mindset that we have here, is we have to focus on the psychological solutions or even the illogical solutions. And like, to put it in perspective, so I'll give you like 3 examples where I always try and tell the staff about too. Is the iPhone is Steve Jobs hated buttons. He thought they were impractical, didn't like the look or feel of them. So that's how we got the touch screen, because he was like, yeah, fuck buttons. All right. He was like, no. And then if you look at Uber, they did a large research piece about like, why do people hate taxis so much? And they're like, it's the wait time. And that's what people were answering. But what they kind of found out throughout research is it's not so much the wait time or like talking to individuals. It was the uncertainty of it. So that's how they got like that, the tracking. And they're like, we're going to arrive at 3:19. So you're like, great, I can either have another beer, I can go pee, or I have to get my shoes on now because they're going to arrive soon. But it also lets you tell where that person or wherever you're going, you're like, okay, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. So now everything's fine, because you could, like, even when you order Ubers, if it's like 20 minutes, like you don't cry about it. You're like, oh yeah, whatever, it's 20 minutes. But if it was a taxi, you'd be like, this is the end.
Yeah. They're just like the communication of that piece is done. You're totally right. It's just about the transparency. I think sometimes on that specific topic, some people get weirded out by how much transparency there is on stuff now, but it puts your mind at ease in some ways. And it's like, oh, then at least, you can communicate with that person the whole way through.
Exactly. I mean, like sometimes, with technology, sometimes it gets invasive. It's either you accept it and then maybe you set boundaries for yourself, but I'm sorry, I'm freaking tickled when I know that my Uber Eats is coming in 5 minutes. I was like, okay, I'm going to put my house coat on. I'm going to look presentable, and I'm going to get, I don't know why I keep on saying burritos. I think I might have to get a burrito. I was like,
is there a craving?
I don't know. I must have a craving.
Is that place still there, the Crazy Cactus? It's
No.
no more, is it?
Oh, no, it's not. No,
Okay.
it's like something else now. I don't know what
Not
it's called.
That's okay. Not that I ever
I don't
went
go
to
out anymore.
Doritos. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, agriculture related stuff
Yeah,
in the past seemed like a good hub. Sorry,
it
shout out to the crazy cactus.
it was good.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, another example, sorry, I'm rambling on because I just think
No,
this
go
one
for
is
it.
so cool, is toothpaste, because they did a study and they're like, "Why do you brush your teeth?" Or like, "What's the purpose of toothpaste?" And they're like, "It's for my dental health."
Mhm.
Like, and they're like, "Okay." But then as more focus groups came around, they're like, if it really was, if you were using toothpaste and brushing your teeth for dental health, then you would brush it after every meal, you would floss. There's like certain things that you would do. And it turns out that most of the people would just like, no, sometimes I like brush my teeth before I go out. So it turned out to me more of a vanity thing. Like I want to present myself in a certain way. So that's how kind of how Scope added in like their little Scope fresh breath flakes in toothpaste. And then
Right.
so that came out and they're like, "Okay, but we still actually care about our dental health." And that's why they had the kind of stripe system too, is because, the white was to keep your teeth healthy, and like whatever the green and the red part was for your fresh breath. But that was all just a psychological
Psychological.
solution. Did it matter? No. If it all came out in one tube, it would still do the same thing. So like those are like the areas of saying, instead of just accepting the obvious logical answer, it's going a little bit deeper and figuring out, okay, what is beyond this logical answer? And
Right.
it's always asking the whys and being a little bit more curious than taking the data and like going beyond it basically.
You basically just quoted the very end there around like Ted Lasso when he's like, or have you seen the show?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God. When
Is
he's
it
like,
good? Everybody tells me it's
it's
good.
good. Yeah. Well, I think it's good. I mean, everyone's got their own like flavor and stuff like that, but he's got like this like famous quote or the character in the show about like be curious. So yeah, I think people should like be curious as well. And that's an amazing share, by the way, about the toothpaste thing. I always find those things
Yeah.
like so interesting and funny along the
Right?
journey. Like the more I hear them, I even like squiggled part of a note down there. I was like, I need to remember this.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah,
absolutely wild. But yeah, that's
yeah.
marketing for you.
Huh. Yeah, and brand stuff like you're talking about and just doing like that review. Um, yeah, that's super cool. I know there's like some fun things I've heard with like logos over the year, like the John Deere instead of like the deer hopping down, they made it hop up.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then this isn't like a huge secret. I just like didn't see it, but now that I see it, I cannot unsee it.
Yeah.
But the FedEx logo with the arrow in it,
Yeah. Isn't
yeah,
that
I'm
cool?
just like, I'm like, oh, that's super clever. Like looks great, and like doesn't even look like it was really like planned, but it's just kind of like there. Obviously, yeah. I mean, they
It's
stuck them
actually
together with the letters, so yeah,
it's ridiculous. Like when we see like um like Walmart came out with their logo and it's just like more like rounded edges or something. I'm
yeah,
like thinking in my mind, because I know the whole process. I'm like, dear Lord, someone spent millions of dollars to get to that point, and like research and the conversations. They'd be like, are we going too much with the rounded bow? Like there's so much that goes into it. And even like naming a company too is just like, oh, it's wild
yeah,
how long it takes. But those projects, even though sometimes they're like grueling and you're like back and forth and you're like, come on, let's go in this direction. Where we end up throughout that whole process is always a happy place, because we've done all the checkpoints. We've
right,
went through the farthest reaches of earth to like really make sure that this will work. And we have a pretty good checkpoint system with our clients too, because usually when people are rebranding or branding, they never really done it before. So we have good
right,
like checkpoints and understanding and education pieces that go to it, because that's half the fun, is like the client understanding it and being part of that process with us. Like we don't want to
that's
do
really
it alone. Yes, we want our creative freedom, but we got to do it together. Like so yeah, it's crazy. I always like think about how much money they put into it. I was like, for rounded edges, I get it.
yeah. Someone outside in though would be like, oh my God, I can't believe they spent several million doing
Yeah.
this, but could have a huge change on product. Whether it be like, yeah, color, rounded edges, squared edges, who knows?
Yeah, it just
What it
checks
is with the
out.
brand.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And how about your own branding with your company? How would you describe it?
Our
It's so
branding?
unique. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't even know how I'd describe our branding.
Okay.
Chaotic. We do what we want. No boundaries. That was like actually one of the biggest things that Carl had established, is that when we do branding for a lot of companies, it's because
Yeah.
usually they're going to have to take it away. They're going to have to use the VID. And for us, he's like, we have creative individuals here. I don't want a lot of boundaries. These are like the certain parameters. So that's why I don't think, I mean, there's a certain style and flavor to it, but I wouldn't say like we're really rigid on it either. And then like how we talk and our copy is very hard to do. Like our copywriters that work here have a very tough time to kind of match it, because Carl has kind of matched it to how I talk, which you can tell by now is all over the place. Splooshing, stanking it up. There's not much like rhythm, but I just don't want it to sound like anyone could say it. And that's what we are at a creative agency, is we don't want to just use AI for it. So that's like a big no-no for us, is like you can use it to brainstorm, but to create an actual product, you have to use your noggin, sploosh it up.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, occasionally there's like birds involved. I don't know how important birds are to the company, but
that's just me. I just really like pigeons. And then people have just started being really nice about including birds, because I like pigeons so much.
What's the draw to pigeons, if I may inquire?
Honestly, they're just like laid back individuals. They got a bad rep. They're literally the same thing as a dove. They're just like street doves. So I think they get a bad name. How they walk, they got a little swagger to them. They eat pretty much anything. If you actually look at them, they're actually pretty cute. They got some nice coloring in there.
They can. Yep. This is
I
interesting.
think
We're
that's
almost like, I don't think there could be a better time to perhaps segue off, because this is very similar to the comment I made earlier about like fun animal facts.
Yes,
this was not
exactly.
planned at all, but it was like how I would sign off on those reports for a bit. And I think, unless you got something else you want to throw in here, we should end on pigeon facts.
Ending on pigeons is great.
Okay, yeah, pigeon ending. If someone wanted to track you down, find you, how can they do that?
I mean, if you look on our website, chessclub.co, my information is on there, but also on LinkedIn, like Larry Anderson. You can't really miss a girl profile named Larry Anderson. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. We'll include the links in here too. But this was awesome having you on, Larry. Thanks for chatting about the biz and pigeons and so much more. So we appreciate the time. Look forward to this going out, and we'll chat more with you soon.
Okay, sounds good.